My name is Steve Shumway, and I am an assistant professor in the Technology Teacher Education program at Brigham Young University. In this video presentation, I have been asked to introduce you to one of the Addenda documents that accompany the Standards for Technological Literacy. The title of this document is Planning Learning, Developing Technology Curricula. Planning Learning is one of the 4 Addenda documents that support the Standards for Technological Literacy and Advancing Excellence in Technological Literacy. Together, these publications can assist educators in development of contemporary standards-based technology education programs. Before discussing the Planning Learning document, I would like to quickly review the purpose for having standards in technology education. Standards state what every student should know and be able to do in an area of study. Standards offer a common set of expectations for what students should learn in the study of a course or program and provide a basis for developing meaningful, relevant, and articulated curricula. Standards, remember, are not a curriculum, but rather a framework for curriculum development. As the title implies, the purpose of the Planning Learning document is to offer teachers and other curriculum developers suggestions and tools for planning, developing, and evaluating standards-based technology curricula. To help understand the need for this document, I would like to introduce the following example. Shown is a picture of some random 2x4s on a job site. Each of the 2x4s in this picture has a purpose. They can be a stud in a wall, a joist, or even part of a window frame. However, you can't really tell what their purpose is until they are organized in a meaningful way. Notice that the 2x4s in this picture have been put together in a manner that has purpose and function. When the Standards for Technological Literacy was first introduced in 2000, many technology teachers reviewed the document and declared that the curriculum they were teaching must be standards-based because many of the activities their students were performing were related to many of the 20 listed standards. While this may seem to be a natural response to implementing the standards into an existing curriculum, the power of the standards can and should be so much more. In fact, instead of looking over an existing curriculum and finding activities and lessons that are related to the Standards for Technological Literacy, technology teachers should consider using the standards as a framework by which they can develop or revise curricula. To emphasize this point, I would like you to consider this slide. Here we see 2 differing approaches that standards can be implemented into a technology education curriculum. I'm going to refer to these approaches as standards reflective and standards-based curriculum. In the standards reflective curriculum, typically teachers will start with a fun activity and then identify what concepts and principles may also be addressed during the activity. Next, they would identify standards and benchmarks that may align, and then select assessments. But the result is a curriculum that is mostly activity-driven and does not necessarily address technological literacy. In a standards-based curriculum, however, you would start with what you want the students to know and be able to do. You would then identify assessments that would aid in the delivery of identified concepts and principles, and then develop and enhance lessons to deliver concepts and principles. The result is a curriculum that is standards-based and addresses technological literacy. One of the risks in the standards reflective curriculum is that we often sometimes end up doing activities for activity's sake, whereas in a standards-based curriculum, the power is that the emphasis of curriculum development is placed on the concepts that are important for students to know and be able to do. Here are the pictures that I showed earlier. The connection I want to make is that as a standards reflective curriculum is like the random 2x4s. A teacher might have a bunch of lesson plans with neat activities that are reflective of the standards, but the overall curriculum lacks a central purpose or theme. On the other hand, a framed house is analogous to a curriculum that is based on the Standards for Technological Literacy. Courses, units, and lesson plans have a central purpose, that purpose being the technological literacy of our students. With that basic introduction, I'd like to now turn my attention back to the Planning Learning document and show it can be used as a template to help in the development of curriculum based on the Standards for Technological Literacy. This book is divided into 6 sections. In the first section, entitled Introduction to Curricula, the reader is introduced to characteristics of a quality curriculum. In Section 2, Planning Curricula, the reader is presented with 5 fundamental questions for planning standards-based curricula. Section 3, entitled Standards-Based Curriculum Development or Revision, is the heart of the book. In this section, the reader is provided with a comprehensive, multi-step process for developing and revising curricula. Next, in Section 4, a general overview of the curriculum evaluation process is provided, and in Section 5, the relationship between curricula and systematic reform is explored. The appendices in this document are especially helpful as they consist of workbooks that teachers and others can use in the curriculum development process. Finally, perhaps one of the most useful aspects of this document is the incorporation of teacher stories and vignettes that provide concrete examples of the concepts presented in each section. Section 1, Introduction to Curricula. Perhaps one of the ways to introduce the importance of curricula is to see how it fits into the big picture of student learning. A graphic model representing the components of an educational program is shown in this slide. A program, indicated by the encompassing green ring, is everything that affects student learning, which is shown in orange at the center of the graphic. The program consists of the content, the professional development, curricula instruction, student assessment, and the learning environment. In this graphic, it would appear that curricula is separate from instruction, assessment, and the learning environment, but in reality, they are all interconnected, as shown in the second graphic. I would quickly like to review the difference between content and curriculum. Content standards specify what students should know and be able to do in technology. They indicate the knowledge and processes essential to technology that should be taught and learned in school. A curriculum specifies the way content is delivered. It includes the structure, organization, balance, and presentation of the content in the laboratory classroom from the learner's point of view and the desired achievements. Section 2, Planning Curriculum. When beginning the curriculum development process, there are several fundamental planning questions educators should consider. The first is, where are we now? To help educators determine the current state of their curriculum and how well it addresses technological literacy. An easy-to-use planning questionnaire is included in Appendix F. The next question is, where do we want to go? Another way of asking this question is, what should our students know and be able to do in order to become technologically literate? Hopefully, the answer to this question is that we want technology programs, courses, and curricula that are based on the standards and benchmarks presented in the Standards for Technological Literacy. Question 3 is, how are we going to get there? I will propose that if your destination is curriculum based on the standards, then the steps presented in Section 3 of this planning learning document is a good vehicle for getting where you want to go. The fourth question, what knowledge and abilities must educators possess to get there? The obvious answer to this question is that educators should familiarize themselves with the standards and the Addenda documents. Participating in professional development opportunities provided by the International Technology Education Association, as well as state and district agencies, is one of the most beneficial ways of developing the knowledge and abilities needed to reach the destination. The final question is, how will we know when we have arrived? Assessment of student learning and evaluation of your technology education program will provide information related to this question. Section 4 of the planning learning document will provide educators with some general guidelines related to program evaluation. In Section 3 of Planning Learning, a 7-step approach for developing curriculum based on the Standards for Technological Literacy is presented. In addition, workbooks that guide the educator as they go through this process are provided in the appendices. This step-by-step approach, along with the workbooks, were developed by the Technology for All American staff and are based upon the backwards curriculum design model presented by Wiggins and McTighe. Quickly, in the backwards design model, a teacher or a curriculum developer would identify desired results and next determine acceptable evidence, with finally planning learning experiences and instructions. The 7 steps presented in this section are ideal for developing new curricula. However, they are also useful to revise existing curricula to make it standards-based. When engaging in developing curriculum at the unit level, we recommend the following step-by-step process while using the workbooks provided in Appendix I of the document. The first 4 steps are presented on this slide. The first step is to identify what it is you want the students to know and to be able to do. To do this, you need to identify standards and then benchmarks that are appropriate for the unit chosen. The second step is to extract and organize content. To do this, look at the benchmarks you have selected and then determine the big ideas the students should learn in order to fully comprehend the standards and benchmarks identified. The third step is to define unit-level assessment criteria. To do this, you need to ask yourself, what knowledge should students possess, or what behaviors should they display in order to meet the items you wanted them to know and be able to do in step 1? Because instruction and related activities have not yet been developed, specific assessments are difficult to create at this time. However, at this point, teachers should consider which assessment methods might best be used to gather data related to the standards and benchmarks chosen. In step 4, educators can now develop instruction and activities that enable their students to learn and be able to do the items identified in step 1. This step, which is essentially the development of lessons within the unit, has several steps in and of itself. In this graphic, we can see within step 4 there are many built-in steps that a teacher would take to develop a standards-based lesson plan. Essentially, these steps follow the previous curriculum development procedure of determining what it is you want the students to know and be able to do in relation to the lesson, and then determining assessments that will enable the teacher to see if the students have attained the concepts, and then developing instruction and activities that will enable the students to learn the concepts identified. In this slide, we see the final 3 steps of the curriculum development process. After the lessons have been developed, you should now be able to move to step 5, which is to identify the specific tools and methods you will use to see if students have attained the content of the standards, benchmarks, and big ideas identified in steps 1 and 2. Once curriculum has been developed, it is hoped that teachers and other curriculum developers will want to evaluate the curriculum as to its effectiveness. The data collected from the assessments collected in step 5 should enable educators to conduct a systematic evaluation of the curriculum and then use these evaluations to recommend modifications to the curriculum. Regarding the approach presented in section 3 of Planning Learning, it is important to note that while the approach presents 7 steps, experienced teachers and other curriculum developers know that organizing curricula does not always occur in linear fashion. As users of the approach become comfortable developing standards-based curricula, they will revisit and re-examine steps to help thoroughly link curricula to technological literacy standards. Due to the fact that the technology we use in our society is constantly changing, it makes sense that the curriculum offered in technology education classes will also be changing. This calls for systematic evaluation of technology programs and classes, and that the standards for technological literacy will be the basis for evaluating technology curriculum. When possible, the organization of a committee to help in the evaluation process is desired. Appendix K in the Planning Learning document provides a checklist that curriculum developers can use when evaluating standards-based curricula. In addition, as educators consider curriculum evaluation, Section 4 of the Planning Learning document provides some questions that might guide this evaluation process. These questions include: is the curriculum standards-based? Next, did the curriculum result in student achievement of the desired standards? Next, did the curriculum provide for effective assessment? Were the identified resource materials appropriate? Were the instructional strategies effective? Were the safety and conduct rules appropriate? And finally, were the laboratory classroom facilities effective? As teachers and other curriculum developers approach technology curriculum evaluation, there are a number of principles that need to be considered. Does the evaluation occur systematically and continuously? Does it address an identified purpose? Is it based on the standards? Is it research-based and objective? Does it establish valid and reliable measurements? Does it utilize fair and equitable methods? Does it incorporate both formative and summative measures? And does it draw data from multiple sources? Section 5, Making a Difference. In this section, suggestions are presented that, if implemented, have the potential to make a difference in our students' lives, as technology education programs are developed that will allow students to become technologically literate and obtain the skills they need to be successful in a technological society. The adoption and support of technology curriculum as an important part of the school curriculum by school boards, administrators, teachers, parents, and students is imperative, improving the worth of the study of technology. Next, professional development opportunities are important to educate teachers and other curriculum developers on the need for curriculum based on the standards, and to provide these individuals with the skills they will need to revise curriculum. In order to make a difference, leadership that supports and advocates the study of technology, especially at the state, provincial, or regional level, is also important. One of the most useful features in Section 5 is the teacher stories. These stories highlight technology programs that have been able to implement the suggestions above and thus make a difference in helping students become technologically literate. Each of the suggestions in Section 5 serve as a call to action to implement successful technology programs in our schools. Finally, in closing, I would like to remind the viewer that the purpose of planning learning is to serve as a guide to teachers and other curriculum developers in developing contemporary curricula that promotes technological literacy for all students, and invite you to use the information in each of the 5 sections, along with the workbooks found in the appendices, to aid in developing standards-based curriculum. Thank you.